back then they had kissing booths.
Hmm.
So what they would do, they would create a lot of static, make a girl stand there, and she would be loaded with static electricity because she's standing on that machine.
Hmm.
And then people would pay money to go kiss her because when you go close to her lips, there will be a spark moving to you.
Oh.
And people were making loads of money out of it.
Seriously, okay.
Yeah. Until about 1920, 30 or so, you know what X-rays was used for? Entertainment.
How so?
Entertainment. So X-ray was used in cobbler shops to do shoe fitting.
Fascinating story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what happened? These people that were having fun were all dying of cancer. You are going to sleep with a device. You're waking up to a device, right? And you're sitting in the commode with the device, right? And
That's the most common thing you find these days. People doing it, yeah.
right? Who are the top 5 companies in terms of revenue today in the world? Social media platform owners.
Right.
Okay. What is their capacity to spend money in marketing?
Infinite.
Most of them today are spending anywhere between $4 to $14 billion every year in marketing. $4 to $14 billion. I'm just talking about FANG companies.
Okay.
If they are spending so much of money to gain your attention, and you are giving your attention to them, the model works.
Welcome back to the Midnight Lab, a place where we deep dive into the challenges and opportunities of the modern life. This is Suraj Mahale, and let me share some facts about our last 2 podcasts that we uploaded. We got some good views, thank you so much for that, but many of our views came from people who have not subscribed to our channel. Please subscribe to the Midnight Lab YouTube channel and follow the Midnight Lab on Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. Coming back to today's episode. Imagine this. You have just woken up and you see that your hands are looking for something. Before even you realize, your phone is in your hand. And then you start checking your notifications. Then you start checking your messages. Then you see social media feeds, etc., etc. And you are just pulled in. There is no escape. Time flies by and you realize that you are always running out of time. That is digital addiction for us, which we do not realize. It's not just screen time. It's a word that is crafted to pull us in, to keep us engaged, and to keep watching some kind of content throughout the day at any cost. Now, what's the cost? It's basically the time we lose. It's the sleep we lose. It's the very sense of self. And our most important thing, that is the mental health. In today's episode, we dive deep into the secrets behind Digital Trip with Srihari Prahalad, founder of Spryen, a company that aims to create a digital harmony in our lives. We discuss the psychology of addiction, how tech giants engineer their apps, and its effect on our mental health and our relationships. Do you feel that you are irritated throughout the day? Are you not able to sleep properly? Then take a pause and see if the digital usage is causing all of these issues. So if you think you are almost in that phase where there is no escape for you, then this episode is for you. If you are just curious about understanding the factors or the forces that control our lives or are managing our lives at this point in time, then this episode is for you. Let me say this again before we begin. Hit the subscribe button and follow us on all social media handles. Welcome to the deep dive into digital addiction with Srihari Prahalad. Srihari sir, thank you so much for taking the time out to have this conversation with us despite your busy schedule on this very, very short trip to India. How's life treating you, sir?
So far, so good, Suraj. Thanks a lot for having me here. I think I'm excited to come here and talk to you about some of the key aspects that we need to discuss.
Great, sir. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes.
So, you founded Spryen a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about what Spryen does?
So Spryen is a company that I started out of my passion. So it the evolution of Spryen goes back to my own daughter. My daughter is 8 years old. So, and also while as a hobby, I actually teach kids on academics and all of that. So whenever I've been teaching, talking to parents, one common thing that has come out is how these students are constantly looking at their screens, right? That is how Spryen came into existence. I'm an environmental engineer by academics as well.
Okay.
So for me, it was quite a natural sort of inclination towards trying to understand not only the mental aspects of it, but also try and understand why this is happening. And I started looking deeper and deeper into it. And 2.5 years ago, then we decided that we should have a firm that is only focused on trying to reduce screen time and moderate digital habits. So that's how started Spryen.
So this was formed in 2021, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
Okay, great. So one of the key things that I came across when I was doing my research was your team consisted of mental health experts,
Right.
if I'm not wrong. If I can ask, what were the key findings when you were designing the products with that team?
So the product designing to address something like this, Suraj, is it's a very long process. It involves inputs from too many experts from various departments. What we realized that we needed to have therapists, we needed to have counselors, we needed to have mental health experts to sort of talk into this.
Okay.
But I should not belittle the fact that along with them, this whole subject area is highly judgmental. There is
Right.
nothing here that I can clearly tell you, not just me, nobody even in the medical fraternity can exactly tell you where addiction starts, where addiction stops, unless it's a substance abuse or it's
That's-
alcohol addiction.
Sorry to
Right.
interrupt you. That I think that's where a lot of people, in medical terms, don't call this as a digital addiction, which is very crazy for me
Yeah.
because necessarily there may not be any withdrawal symptoms
Yeah.
for digital addiction,
Yeah.
but you still go through a lot of things when you're trying to stop using digital appliances or digital devices.
Correct. Pathways are very similar, Suraj. So coming back to your question, how did we end up designing the products? So the products had to be split into two different categories. So we've come up with a few products that help in breaking habits.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the digital realm. You could use them just to break habits.
Right.
The other set of products are products that are physically protecting you from overuse of devices that are emitting radiation. Right? So there are two dimensions to look at this problem. And that is how we've categorized both of our products. Now, coming up with a product which is going to break a habit is not an easy thing to do because it is an internal motivation to start a habit, to
Very
cultivate a habit, as well as to break it. It's an internal motivation. So it's very intrinsic. So how do you make that happen, right? So there are numerous studies that we went about understanding, and then we realized that one of the aspects which creates a habit is access, ease of access is a huge contributing factor that creates a habit, right? If you could somehow create friction or just make sure that the ease of access has been disrupted, then there is a good possibility that the habit that has been formed could potentially be reversed or could be replaced with better habits.
Basically, interrupt the easy access that you have.
Exactly, right? So one of the products is the box, the digital box that we have. It is nothing but you put your phone in the box, and then there is a dial on top of the box. You dial it up. It can dial all the way from 1 minute to all the way to 10 days.
That's the max it can go. 10 days.
days.
Okay.
You dial it up, and then you hit that, and it gives you 5 seconds to change your mind. And if you don't, then the box locks itself up.
So the only way to get your phone back is to break the box.
Is to break the box. So what is the theory behind this? The theory behind this is how do you break habits? Let's say in a certain time of the day, you are constantly looking at your mobile phones, right? There are two ways to do it. take the mobile phone, put it in a drawer, or put the mobile phone somewhere high up, or try to introduce some sort of a friction, which none of us are going to do anyway. So then what's the best way to do it? Try to introduce this concept in those specific times of the day where not only that person that is having the screen time is putting his mobile inside, it's a collective act of everybody at home doing it, which then brings out a new habit that these many hours is something that I do not have access to it. None of us have access to it. So now what happens? It forces you into conversations.
Right.
We've had situations where people have used the box and the outcomes have been something else. Like the outcomes have been better relationship with a spouse.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So there are a myriad of outcomes that are possible. So we normally look at the patterns. When you look at the patterns universally, when do people use their phones a lot? It's a deeper subject. Sometime during this conversation, when we talk about addiction, I'll talk more about it. But just to address this point, you are going to sleep with a device. You're waking up to a device, right? And you're sitting in the commode with the device, right? And
That's the most common thing you find these days. People doing it, yeah.
So if these 3 points can be attacked, then you're attacking one of the most stickiest points that is helping to create this screen habit. These are the 3 core points in your day where it really all comes together and gives you the highest source of anxiety. You wake up, the moment you wake up, you're constantly thinking about what messages you have, something that you left off last evening, what has happened this morning. You're constantly worried about, is there anything that happened in the world that I should know today, right? Has my favorite star posted something? Should I become aware of it?
One of the fascinating things that I came across when I was researching for this podcast was tech-free zones.
Right.
Right? Although it's very simple by going by the words, can you help us understand what that is?
So we advocate a lot for assigning a certain living space in your house to be tech-free. And we prefer that to be where you rest your head in the night, which otherwise is your bedroom, right? What we always suggest is most of what we are doing today, because of the influx of technology into our lives, the first thing that it is stealing from us is the sleep time.
Right.
You have your daily routine. You're very busy. You have your work. You come back home. You're very busy with family, right? And then what about that dopamine rush that you've been getting by scrolling through social media? So where is the time for that? What you end up doing is taking out time from your sleep and allocating to screens.
Right.
So when you start doing that on a regular basis, it introduces an interruption in your body's circadian rhythms, in your biological clock.
Right.
And that has a bunch of effects, which it's a longer list for me to just talk about.
And it just keeps growing. The list getting bigger every day.
It is not just a single point effect. The lack of sleep is just not going to come out with a lack of focus in the next day. But a prolonged lack of sleep can lead to devastating situations, can lead to chronic diseases, can lead to all sorts of issues for you in future, right? So coming back to tech-free zones, what we say is we ask people to designate a particular spot. Now, what this also does, you must understand, particularly if you have children at home, children do not learn by telling them. You can keep telling the child what to do. They don't learn that way. People who can learn by hearing, they have to cross a certain age before they can rationalize and before they can listen to what you're saying, right? But all through the initial formative years, they learn by watching and observing.
Just by mirroring the parents or their surroundings.
That's about it. So today, we as parents, we call ourselves as digital immigrants. in comparison to the next generation, they're called digital natives because they come into the age.
Sorry. So this generation, you're saying we call them as digital immigrants. The next generation is
Digital natives.
digital natives. Okay.
Digital immigrants means your formative years have not been shaped by technology.
Right.
You've applied technology at a point where your brain can rationalize. So you're at a point where you can take a decision consciously that I would go to this for this 1, 2, 3, 4. It is fair, which means you have a fair amount of self-control. Digital natives, their formative years are formed by technology, being an integral part of their growing years. When that happens, it is no longer a rational thought. It is no longer a cognitive reason for you to take the phone. You're not taking the phone because you want answers. You're taking the phone because you've seen your parents on the phone all the time. So now, these are two different things to distinguish, right? When something like this happens, this is more akin to addiction, whereas the digital immigrants are more able to control. Of course, there are digital immigrants that are addicted as well.
Right.
I'm not denying the fact at all. But then you have this sense of control where you feel that you could stop at any time. You still feel that that doesn't control you. I can still live without it.
It has not gotten to a point where it becomes problematic, basically.
Exactly, right? So when you talk about a child this way, so circling back to your point on tech-free zones, how do you teach the child? How do you make a role model set up at home where you're explaining to the child that there are specific times, there are specific areas at home, right? Where you go into that area, there are no screens, right? Which means you don't have a choice but to talk to each other, right? You're not now focusing on a screen, and this is called fubbing. It's a new terminology. Fubbing means Suraj is asking me a question and I'm on my phone. It's called fubbing, right? Or I'm talking to you, we are all standing, three of us are talking with each other, and all of a sudden one guy takes the phone and just goes away.
Right.
So this is the highest form of insult to the intelligence of the person in front of you,
Right.
right? That you could provide by totally taking your attention away to something else,
And that's
whereas
more
the
of a
person is still talking.
Right. That's more of a mental hijack as well. I mean, what you said, I can absolutely relate to that. There are times when I'm talking to someone.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm talking to my wife, and all of a sudden I get a notification or a message. Then I absolutely don't hear what she's saying.
Exactly.
I'm just completely focused on what I'm doing in my phone.
Yeah.
Right.
So this Suraj is a very deep topic. In fact, one of the reasons why relationships are falling apart is because of acknowledgement, right? Let's talk about acknowledgement just a little bit more here, because that's one of the impact areas of digital screen times. Even an animal today, right? If you want to train a dog, how do you train? You give it something and you acknowledge the action that it did.
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah. So let us talk about, how does the dolphin know that you put a ring way outside and it jumps out of the water, gets into the ring? Has anyone thought about how do they train the dolphin to do that?
Right. Never thought about it,
Yeah.
actually.
So the dolphin's never going to do that. So you go to the sea and you put a ring. Do you think dolphin's going to come? Then you can just catch dolphins just like that by showing rings in the sea and put them in your ship, right? So again, it all comes through reinforcements. It all comes through acknowledgement. So reinforcement, I wouldn't use that word. It becomes very technical. I want to use acknowledgement just because I'm trying to define that. So what do? You put some sort of a ring at the bottom inside the water to begin with.
Okay.
By mistake, the dolphin gets into it. By mistake, comes out of it. The moment that mistake is committed, you acknowledge that by giving it food. The second time, the dolphin does that by mistake. You again acknowledge it. The dolphin is thinking, what? What's going on? If I get into this, I'm getting food. Very quickly, the dolphin realizes I get into it, it gets food, right? Now you start moving the ring from inside the water, slowly and slowly outside the water, at a point where the ring is so far out that the dolphin jumps to get into it, right? The way the animals currently have evolved their brains towards acknowledgement is not too far from the way humans have evolved their brains. It's the same patterns. I would probably say, fortunately, we are very similar there, animals and humans. So for humans, acknowledgement works in subtle ways. I'm talking to you, Suraj, you're nodding your head, and hence I'm talking more. If you stop nodding your head, I will stop talking.
That's also an acknowledgement.
It's a subtle acknowledgement to me that you are hearing me and you're understanding what I'm saying. There was a good experiment conducted called the still face paradigm with a child. The child was 1 year, 2-year-old children.
Okay.
Were brought in their prams and kept there. And the mother was in front of the child, and the mother is playing with the child, acknowledging, showing trinkets, playing with the child.
Okay.
On a signal, the mother just stops. It's called still face. Just looking at the child, still face. Or, for that matter, just looking at the phone, still faced. Now I'm making a big similarity here. I'm leaping this experiment into what's happening today, right? What is happening to the child? The child, first, doesn't understand what is going on.
Right.
Second thing the child does is starts moving its arms and legs here and there.
Trying to gain attention as well.
Trying to gain attention. Then the child starts looking all around, trying to find something interesting. In about 3 flat minutes, the child is crying its guts out because it has no idea what is going on. Why is this woman not talking to me? Why am I not getting the required acknowledgement from this adult? What really is going on? All right? So there are deeper learnings from this. The pattern of acknowledgement is for a child that is 1 year old is seeking that, right? It doesn't really now go back to any genetic factors here. Really, acknowledgement is a sort of a social/cultural factor, giving it a shape and form that defines how the child even thinks. A child that is constantly ignored will grow to become a certain person. A child that is constantly acknowledged will grow to become a certain person, right? I'm not saying one is better than the other.
Right.
I'm saying find a point between. There are moments where you have to allow for growth to happen by ignoring.
Right.
It is required. There are moments where you have to not acknowledge. It is required, right? But there are moments where you have to acknowledge, right? So there is, unfortunately, in nature, there is no zeros and ones. They're all shades of gray. There is nothing in between, right?
Right.
So coming back to what I was saying, now if I draw this analogy to a simple relationship that people have, brother, sister, mother, father, husband, wife, daughter, son, all sorts of relationships that we have today, it is all built on solid forms of acknowledgement. Solid forms of acknowledgement. The relationships that we take for granted, we have stopped acknowledgements there. That is why they fall apart. The moment you take a relationship for granted, you stop acknowledging, right? It falls apart. So you have your cousin who's helping you in the podcast here, right? I constantly see you acknowledging him, right? Over a period of time, because you've been doing this a lot, you stop acknowledging him. I'm telling you, he's not going to stay with you for long.
Very true.
It's a very subtle thing. It's not like you have to go and give him a pluck every time he does something. Don't have to do that. You don't have to feed fish to him every time.
Right.
I understand he's from Mangalore, so I used fish as an
Nice
analogy.
analogy. No, but he does love fish. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Hmm.
so these subtle nods that you do, very important for us. And while we deviated quite a bit talking about acknowledgement, but the point I'm trying to make here is that coming back to these fubbing, when you look at the phone and you fail to acknowledge the person in front of you, it can have devastating consequences to your moral health, to your mental health, and to your social relationships.
Right. All right. Let's get into the most flavorful part of this chat.
Yeah.
Social media. You mentioned it earlier. Do you think it has changed people over the years and may have also turned them into completely new species?
So, a lot of them tell that social media has become ubiquitous. People use that a lot, right? And you'll have to start staying away from it. What the way I look at it, Suraj, is it is now there to stay.
Right.
You can't do without it, right? So we're not talking about somebody constantly looking at it. We're talking about somebody constantly looking at it becoming a lifestyle. The two different things.
Right.
Yeah. So people at home nowadays, they dedicate time just for that.
Right.
I have been in households where all 3, 4, 5 people in the households are sitting in the living room. They are living, but
Okay.
in their own digital worlds. All of them are on the phone, right? So they are now starting to provide separate times for it. There are moments in the house where food is had.
Right.
You don't know what to do after that. It is a holiday. The mother is trying to go set things up to sleep. The father is dozing away slowly. The child has no idea what to do because the mother and father are not available, right? All of them take to their mobile devices, particularly social media, right? So now that it is so difficult now to say, is this a habit or is this an addiction?
Right.
What is it? Is it a habit or is it an addiction? So every day morning you wake up, you brush your teeth. Are you addicted to brushing teeth?
No, I don't think I would call that.
Yeah, nobody is going to call that an addiction. But is that a habit? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So what are the parameters that you distinguish between addiction and habit, right? It's graying right now. Right now, it's turning into a habit. Right. So when something becomes a habit, it's part of your lifestyle. It starts to define who you are. It starts to define what you think you are. It starts to shape thoughts in your minds even before they are spoken. Right. There are deeper implications on this. So what has it done to our lives? Obviously, it has changed it quite a lot because a significant amount of our mental fraternity or mental real estate today, we are significantly taking all of that space that we have and allocating it to digital means or social media.
And that leads to a lot of mental health issues. That's basically, so one of the key things that people overlook these days is the effect it has on our mental health when you constantly use something. I'm not saying using a particular social media is bad, but there is a time when it gets problematic. So when is the time you think it gets problematic? I think you already spoke of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, go on.
So that's very subjective, Suraj. So if there is any doctor today that can tell you that I will tell you how much you're addicted, it is not possible. Even in the realm of substance abuse and alcohol addiction, porn addiction, game addiction, which are having real physical effects, particularly alcohol and cigarettes and stuff like that, right? They have real big-time physical effects, right? When you study those addictions, they all follow a certain pattern, right? There is a concept of control. lack of control rather, right? Then there's a concept of craving, right? And then there is a concept of consequences.
Mm.
Even though the consequences are not good, you continue to do something. That is called addiction.
Mm.
You know the consequences are not good, but you continue to do something because you are not able to. There is a lack of impulse control, as we call it. It's called ICD, impulse control disorder.
Okay.
Right? You don't know how to control the impulse. It happens, you give into it. Right? And then there is a concept of tolerance. It's like, so in India, we use that a lot, right? This guy, he started drinking 1 peg a day, and now he's not getting the same high. He needs 3 to get there.
Mm.
He continues with 3. It's not going to give him the same high. He needs 5 to get there. And then he needs 6 to get there. This is a classic symptom of addiction, where your tolerance levels keeps going higher and higher in order to get the same dopamine hit.
To put it in social media angle, so you start watching your phone or tablet for 15 minutes, then it becomes 30 minutes,
Yes.
1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and eventually, as per the survey,
Yeah.
global internet users use their phones for close to 6 hours in a day.
Absolutely.
Again, this is the average.
Yeah. And this average swings both ways. I totally don't buy into these statistics, Suraj. The reason I'll tell you, this is highly subjective, highly individualistic. I've seen people with up to 12 hours a day. And do not be surprised if you start logging your hours. I think you will be sitting at 8 to 10 hours easily, right? Including your work, of course.
Right.
So I've hardly found anyone who in the current generation who spends less than 8 hours a day. So your waking time is about 14 hours, giving time for all biological activities as well as sleeping. And out of 14 hours, if you're going to spend 7 to 8 hours, it's over 50% of your day is spent on it, right?
That's huge.
Now let's understand, what is it doing to us? Are we all becoming Albert Einsteins? That's the question to ask. We're not. So why are we taking to it? Why would somebody take and browse the internet? Is it only to gather information, or is it more? Why is anybody going to social media at all? This is a tough question to answer, but few directions that we can throw light into. One of it is that there is a constant sense of anxiety when you don't look into it.
Right.
The reason is, every time you swipe, there is something new. Newness is perceived by the brain as a possible exploratory option for the brain to learn something new.
In simple words, a brain wants something new every time. It's bored of doing something,
And
which
how
has been
does
going
it?
for a long time.
And what does a brain do with that, Suraj? That is when it releases dopamine, the neurotransmitter that connects the neurons.
Right.
Now, evolutionarily, it has worked very well for us. Every time a dopamine hits your brain, right? The brain is telling your body, that's a good thing, do it again. That's evolution, right? You had food, wow, some dopamine. You know what? Do it again. We like food, right?
Right.
You touch the fire, you don't like it, the brain has a way of saying, don't do this, right? This is not good. So what are we today, Suraj, are nothing but a bunch of experiments that each one of us have conducted since childhood and figured out for every experiment what works, what doesn't work, what works, what doesn't work. And the ones that works, we kept doing that over and over again. And that defines Suraj, that defines Srihari,
Right.
what we are today, right? So now coming to this context of social media now, right? What is it doing? It's constantly throwing new things. The brain is assuming that there is something to learn, but apparently there isn't, because it is just random elements that is thrown at you by a bunch of algorithms, which is monitoring constantly as to how many people are seeing this and bringing it to your attention so that there are more and more people see it.
And that gives you the dopamine rush.
Absolutely. Right? And people have coined the word FOMO and all of that. I don't believe in any of it. Honestly, I don't care about FOMO. I don't care about any of those things. It really is intrinsic. It really comes down to your ability to get to something for a certain reason. And once it is achieved, you move on with that information, not fall into the big abyss of information and get lost in it
Right.
and not know when to come out of it.
True. There's also a different view to this. So there's also something called as peer pressure, right? I'll tell you a personal story. So I came to Instagram just a few months ago.
Yeah.
That's because I started this conversation. I thought Instagram will help me in sharing my podcast with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I was I was working in a company and I had a great team. I'm still in touch with them. I love them. So they would always come and ask me, are you on Instagram? Are you on Instagram? And I said I was never on Instagram. I'm on Facebook because that was the social media, best social media which we had when I was growing up. And they looked at me very differently. Okay, so I think peer pressure also plays a pivotal role in this.
You brought an important point. In research, what we call it as, this is called as social/cultural angle to addiction. It's simple. You're staying in a neighborhood, let us say, where right outside you have an alcohol shop.
Right.
You're day in and day out passing by. In your mind, it gets normalized. Nothing wrong in having alcohol. People are having alcohol and lying down on the street. One day, let me also try. Right? So this is the aspect of where not only I'm touching on ease of access, but I'm also touching about the cultural and social aspect of it. In some places, having alcohol is culturally good. You're supposed to have.
Right. If you don't drink, they ask you, is everything okay with you?
You're supposed to have. So that's a cultural aspect of it, right? So right now, social media has gained that platform where it is collectively, people have given it a status that it truly doesn't deserve. However, now that status that it enjoys is attracting people towards it, and people that do not go towards it are classified as outliers, right? And when you view yourself as an outlier, then you are now thinking that I need to get onto that bandwagon.
Right.
I shouldn't be left out, right? Again, FOMO, right? But honestly, what you gain out of it is a question you must ask yourself, right? If you constantly keep asking this question, whenever you take the screen, why did I take the screen?
Right.
Now, the second question is important. What else could I have done instead of getting on the screen, right? And the third question you have to ask yourself is, how long am I going to stay on this before I fulfill why I came here for?
But tell me something, Srihari sir. When you're into social media, when you're watching social media, these thoughts actually don't come to your mind. I mean,
so this is the only way you are able to train yourself to go and get what you want and keep it away. Otherwise, when you go into something mindlessly with no objective, right? With no set duration, right? Then you're going to get lost. If you tell yourself 5 minutes is all I'm going to scroll through my feed, right? What comes. Doesn't matter, right? Because scrolling through different people's lives is adding no value to yours.
Understood.
People do come and tell me, oh, no, I saw this person talk. It added a lot of value to my life. Give me just 1 hour with that person. Within the first 10 minutes, I can try to make that person understand that it has added no value. But what it has in turn done is it has bred comparison in his mind so much that I can actually point out signs of depression in that person.
Okay.
There are always exceptions, Suraj. But
Understood.
the norm is what we're trying to deal with now.
So I think I came across a survey from American Psychological Association which said 56% of adults face digital overload.
Yeah.
And I think you just mentioned about depression.
Yeah.
So again, we may have already spoken about this. Why do you think people love spending time online?
Yeah. So digital overload, the number that you're quoting probably is a lot higher. If you include particularly places like India and China, it's a lot more higher
Right.
as compared to America. So the digital overload is happening by design, Suraj. Who are the designers? Let's talk about it. What is the objective of a person that created a social media platform? What is the objective?
They wanted to reach as many people as possible
Perfect.
so that
Reach
they
as
could
many
sell their products or
products,
ads.
right? Who are the top 5 companies in terms of revenue today in the world? Social media platform owners.
Right.
Okay. What is their capacity to spend money in marketing?
Infinite.
Most of them today are spending anywhere between 4 to 14 billion dollars every year in marketing. 4 to 14 billion dollars. I'm just talking about FANG companies.
Okay.
If they are spending so much of money to gain your attention and you are giving your attention to them, the model works.
Right.
So why are we searching for answers which is not business oriented? The answer is simple business norms, is what is happening today, right? Now, if you go, and there are so many cases in the US, class action suits against all of these, that you have done this, you have made my child get addicted, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, they're going to say, listen, there is a fine print. We have told you this could get addictive. You chose to stay on to it, right? Now, if the counter question could be asked, okay, if that is the case, why don't you spend all of this money for something else and not necessarily run this platform the way you're running today? Would that be a good middle term, right? No, that's not a middle term, because they are driven by different set of objectives, right? Now, so this is the model in which the business today is, the world today is, sorry, right? Now let me talk about how, as an individual, you're perceiving it. Okay. Now you could say, Srihari, no, you know what? Yeah. So what if all the companies are doing it? But why still people are going to it, right?
Number one, it's free.
Yeah, right? So if I take out all the business aspects to it, so when you said free, that is part of the business model. So let's not even worry about the business model, right? We know a lot of things in the business model. So if they're spending billions of dollars to get you to see it, obviously they have made sure that you have ease of access. They have made sure that you can get on it quickly. They have made sure that it is free for you. They've made sure that it gets bundled with the phone that you buy. They've made sure. So they've reduced all friction points. This is the business aspect to it, Suraj. Forget about business aspect to it. Let's talk as an individual, right? You grew up without it, but now you're going on it, right? Why? Now that's the question to be answered, because that's where you will get your answers. That is where your solutions are going to come out of, because you can't go and ask the social media guy to stop the platform. That's not a solution. So where does the solution lie? Solution lies with you. So now let's see why this happens, right? Why is it that we are so casually giving away our attention to a stranger behind a screen? So casually. Whereas a mother, a father, a husband, a spouse sitting in front of you doesn't get that attention.
Right.
Anymore. Right? For a multitude of reasons. Now, let me quote them one by one. So it depends on the age group that you are in. Right? If you're in your formative years, during your adolescence age, right? Particularly, I would say between 8 all the way to 18, if I can sort of categorize it that way. These are people that are constantly learning when they are young, right? They explore the world. This is the age of exploration. They explore the world, right? Whether you like it, you don't like it. I'm sure in our lives, we've been like that when we were teenagers.
Right.
No matter what happens at home, we will do whatever it takes, because we kind of feel that, I will go out and conquer the world.
Right.
Everything is in my hands, my friends, my bike, my
Everything
college,
surrounds me. Everything is around me, basically.
Yeah, right? So that's the age where you always explore. So if now I give you a screen and tell you, you keep swiping and you can start exploring, it is a natural attraction and you get attracted to it more and more.
Right.
So that's that age group. Now let's look at the age group beyond. The age group beyond, they have an ability to rationalize their actions because they're adults now.
Right.
They have the ability to question themselves. Now let's talk for the majority. There are exceptions to whatever I'm saying, but let's talk about majority. If this were to happen, right, now the question to ask is, why aren't we exercising that rational mind at a certain point?
Okay.
Right? Now, why that doesn't happen is because you are heading towards it for not cognitive reasons, but you're heading towards it for social reasons, which we just spoke about. Right? Again, an outcome of a business model. It is an outcome of a business model, but we are feeding into it.
Right.
Right? Today, a Suraj could have existed even without Instagram. There was no, or without any social media for that matter. You can still exist. You can still live here. You can still have a good life. You will still have very good friends. And trust me, just by going online, it doesn't mean you have more friends. That's just a wrong perception.
I have 1,000 friends on social media, but in reality, I don't have so many friends.
Nothing, actually, right? Because friendship is a slow process. Friendship requires face-to-face interaction. Friendship is not something that you form just like that. So, I think going back to the point, the attention that we're giving away so easily is contributing to digital overload, and it was also contributing to attention deficit. People nowadays don't have enough attention to give away because they're constantly thinking in their minds that after this, I need to browse through a bunch of things now. So I need to get out of this conversation as quickly as I can because it's not adding any value to me. Instead, I might as well go to the non-value adding task of scrolling, which is also not adding value. It's just easy to do that because you're not judged. There is no person in front of you. So if I were to go to someone and say, hey, your face looks bad, you're ugly, right? Let's say a child goes and tells his friend, your face looks dirty, right? Or you sweat a lot, you're smelly, right? Face to face, this happens, Suraj. You get a feedback. We spoke about acknowledgement earlier, acknowledgement/feedback earlier. If a child goes and tells his friend, and the child looks at the friend is sad. The child realizes it's not a good thing to say. So don't say it again.
But you don't get that on social media if you're talking to someone.
Now on social media, it is so easy. You're smelly. You're really smelly. You're sweating. I don't like you. And now what? Nothing. Now what? So now you have a sense that I can do this more. Yeah. Now I can go abuse everybody. There is no feedback. There is no loop.
Absolutely, yeah.
There is no loop. And if 10 people like it, you do more. You do more of it. So, a simple question, Suraj, but it's got deeper implications. And I constantly implore people to think deeper before you do something. Same issues happening with food nowadays. People are mindlessly consuming food.
Because it's easily available to...
Ease
you
access.
can easily order food these days.
There are people that are getting addicted to shopping online. Justify it to me. No.
Right.
But there is a dopamine hit. You open the box. New thing is coming out. It's called the shiny object syndrome. SOS, right?
Understood.
New.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far we spoke of the mental aspect of all the digital addiction. Now, electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic topic, a very fascinating topic. Essentially, it's just energy that travels in space. It includes your microwaves, radios, and even visible light.
Right.
But do you think we really understand the behind the scenes that happen behind these invisible waves?
A very difficult topic. As an engineer myself, I can tell you that if you go back and look at history of how electromagnetism was even discovered and how the waves were discovered, almost all of it is by accident, right?
Nobody went looking for it.
It all started with static electricity, right? Amber, you brush the amber, it started attracting. Then somebody said the attraction, let us call it electricity. And the whole concept of electricity came into existence. And then they were doing a lot of, back then they had kissing booths. So what they would do, they would create a lot of static, make a girl stand there, and she would be loaded with static electricity because she's standing on that machine. And then people would pay money to go kiss her because when you go close to her lips, there will be a spark moving to you. And people were making loads of money out of it.
Seriously, okay.
Yeah. And then the whole concept moved on from static electricity when a Leyden jar was invented, where they could store the static electricity. Suddenly they realized now this electricity can be put to use, right? So the first use that it was put to was if there is enough power, and I'm not using a lot of technical terms here, Suraj. I'm trying to keep it to layman terms.
Okay.
If there is enough power and there's an arc formed, the arc can be bright enough to lighten up the room. That was the first discovery. So then what they did, they put all Leyden jars together. They put thousands of them together.
Okay.
And they produced an arc in the hall. And the hall lit up.
Lit up, okay.
That was the first light in the night. Right? What people didn't realize, every time the arc was coming out, it was spewing enormous amounts of electromagnetic waves in the air. Nobody knew it. It was ionizing the atmosphere. Nobody knew it. That was all right. People were dying. Right? And then somebody came and found this whole concept of electricity generation because of the way the magnetism, and anytime you take a metal or a conductor around it and you jiggle them, then it produces electricity. And initially it was all in DC, and there was this big fight between Tesla and Edison between DC and AC, and AC won the battle, which was perfected by Tesla.
Okay.
And now what do you do? Unfortunately, AC goes up and down. If you go back to high school physics, when you draw AC, you draw a sine curve. Right? It goes up and down. It goes up to the same extent as it comes down. Right? In physically, what does up and down mean? Physically. What does that mean? Something is coming, something is going. Something is coming, something is going, right?
There's no one position. It's basically change.
It's going up and down, right? So the lights that we're sitting right now, they're all flickering lights. They're just flickering just above the threshold of our brain's imperception. If it flickers any lower, you and I will say, hey, it is blinking.
The camera captures it.
Yeah, the camera captures it. You know why? Because it has a frame per second, which is lower than the perception, the refresh rate. Therefore, it captures it. So coming back to your point now, the point I'm trying to make, these are deeper subjects, Suraj, but the point I'm trying to make is a lot of these, when they came into existence, people looked at the outcome and took it along. Like X-rays.
Not at the impact.
Let's look at X-rays. X-ray, Röntgen, Nobel Prize, early 1900s, until about 1920, 30 or so. You know what X-rays was used for? Entertainment.
How so?
Entertainment. So X-ray was used in cobbler shops to do shoe fitting.
Fascinating story. Okay.
Yeah. So there was an X-ray machine. People would put their leg inside. And then on the other side, you can see the bone. And for people to get into that machine, they had to pay more. And people would queue up in line like the kissing booth to go and see themselves as bones. Right? There were X-ray machines which would do the whole body in the stage. Okay? And people would take turns, pay money, go and stand behind it. And everybody were able to see the bones on the other side.
Just for fun.
Just for fun. And then what happened? These people that were having fun were all dying of cancer. Right?
Right.
What is going on? It is so simple. Put your leg in, you can see the bone. Dude, there's nothing wrong with this. Right? Then somebody said, this radiation is ionizing the atmosphere. Okay? It is changing the structure of the DNA. It is damaging the DNA. It is breaking the strands. It is killing the cells. Right? Then they said, no. The 1950s, it was banned. Since the time it was discovered, 40 to 50 years later, they said, it is harmful. Let's not do this anymore. So all these nice ways of making money were thrown out of the window, right? And then came this whole concept of, it produces waves. Now let's see how we can carry data through it, right? AM radio station was the first radio station that was put up, right?
Okay.
Earlier it was all AM, right? Amplitude modulation.
Right.
It was not FM. An AM functional radio station, if you go next to the antenna outside the radio station, AM station, do you know you cannot touch that antenna?
What happens if I do?
You'll die. There is power on that antenna to such an extent that around the antenna, they make this hole, they cordon off that area with quite a bit of distance. In spite of that, you can actually take things to that antenna and you can touch the antenna and you can fry your food if you want. Yeah, there are people that have done that. Take a sausage, touch the antenna, the sausage is fried, and then you eat it. Of course, it was done as an experiment. But what I'm trying to say is, all that I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying this is wrong, don't do it. What I'm trying to say is we've understood all of these mechanisms after taking the benefits that we perceived into our lives.
Right.
And then suddenly we realized, by the way, this also has this, right? Now, bear in mind, when static electricity was produced, somebody put a kissing booth and made money, right? When this one came out, X-ray came out, somebody made this whole shoe fitting thing and made money, right? As long as your objective is to make money, as soon as something new comes up, you'll pick it up and you'll start making money. If you make enough money, okay, and then you realize there's something wrong with it, if the money is big enough, you will not do anything to fix it. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So now you will not go back and look at the impact. Why would you do it? You won't do it, right? So then, so what is really happening? You must be thinking, Srihari, come on. There are so many bodies here. There's so many big people. They certify everything. They do this. They do that test. They do this test. You can't just blindly go out and make such a statement. Obviously, I'm not saying any of that at all. All that I'm saying is very simple, right? Cars are very good for us, right? It is the most inefficient machine that humans have ever created because an IC engine's efficiency is only below 50%. In fact, higher 30s.
Okay.
50% of the fuel is getting wasted. And we've been using it. It's the most inefficient engine, packed beautifully on top of it, sold, right? Fair enough. We have a lot of energy to burn. Let's burn it all.
Right.
Right? Who cares if 50% of it goes into air? It doesn't matter, right? But in that car, you wear your seatbelt, right? All that I'm saying, Suraj, is wear your seatbelt while using phones. Phones are batteries. Phones are devices that are emitting energy into the atmosphere. There are cell phone towers that are emitting energy into the atmosphere. Compared to 50 years ago to now, there is so much of energy in the atmosphere. The magnitude is something that you and I can't even begin to comprehend, right? There is so much of energy in the atmosphere. So all that we are saying is try and protect yourself from it. Be cautious, right? Don't put the phone next to your head. Don't sleep with it under the pillow. Don't put your phone inside the bra. Don't put your phone inside your pant pockets, right? Let's not do all these things, right? Be cautious.
I think we covered a lot of topics so far. One thing I want to ask you, not that you're too old, sir, but but what are the changes that you see from the time you were growing up
Yeah.
to the time that we are in right now?
A whole lot of changes, Suraj. I think all of us can chime in on this point about a few changes which I can tell you. We've had play-based learning. Now there is screen-based learning.
Right.
What is play-based learning? You go out, you play cricket with your friends, right? There is always this guy who will never get out. And even if he gets out, he will not give the bat. Yeah.
Right, I know.
So I was one of them.
Okay.
I would not give my bat, right? Runouts are always contested.
Right.
Yeah. Fortunately, we never used to play gully cricket with LBW, so we are saved there. Otherwise,
Right.
that will be a big point of contention.
Right.
There have been times when the ball hits the wicket, I still wouldn't give my bat because I want to keep playing, right? And I would make up stories. I was not ready.
Right.
When the bowler bowled, I wasn't ready.
Trial ball.
Trial
Not
ball.
ready.
Yeah. This ball is for God.
As they say in Bangalore, Devrige first.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Okay.
So while we are laughing about this, but what this has taught us is a lot. This has taught us negotiation skills. This has taught us influencing skills.
Right.
This has taught us political skills. This has taught us how you get your way through. This
Right.
has taught us how different people live their lives. This has taught us when people will be sad, when people will be happy. This has taught us to judge the person in front of us emotionally, to be able to understand what this person is all about,
Right. Right.
right? That's play-based learning, in short. Today, it's screen-based learning, right? You don't... So today, what's happening? People go to school, the friend says something, the child comes crying, and the parent goes and complains to the principal.
Right.
So the child has no recourse. He doesn't know how to deal with this, right? That fellow shouted at me. Yeah. So now the child thinks this needs to be documented.
Right.
Yeah, if we were to document
Then probably you would be out of books to
out of
write all
books,
your stories.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So that's a major change. The other thing that I'm noticing is we tend to resolve issues in a very different way.
Right.
So this is also has a biological bearing. We call it prefrontal cortex. It's right in front of right behind our forehead.
The decision-making brain, if I'm not wrong, is that the prefrontal cortex?
It does a lot of things,
Yeah.
but one thing that I want to highlight is the prefrontal cortex is really responsible for delayed gratification, right? If it's not developed properly, then you swing towards instant gratification, which is a major point in addiction, by the way. Yeah. So, and it starts and develops and it keeps developing all the way until you're 18 or 19. And after that, so that's why if you go for your driver's license test, right? They will tell you, they'll give you a learner's license at 16. But if you sit through the classroom, by law, I don't know how it is here, but by law, they're supposed to tell you that this gentleman is 16 years old, his prefrontal cortex is not well developed, therefore, his ability to control impulse might not be that very well, and hence an adult supervision is always required when he drives. Why do they say this? Because of this reason. It's just a psychological finding, right? Now, let me connect this back to what we are talking about, right? For us, we've sort of gone through that whole mindset, and we have in turn reinforced ourselves to a point where we've come to realize that there are certain things which you have to wait. Okay? Our parents have also helped us in this.
Right.
You're not going to get anything today. Wait. Right?
Patience.
The delayed gratification is a significant trait which determines what you become in your life. It's a very significant trait. There's so many experiments conducted on this. Today, there is instant gratification. So the ability to wait for something better tomorrow is just non-existent. The reason being the prefrontal cortex is not fired at all because of screens. It is not firing those pathways. It is firing the dopamine pathways. Interestingly, when I did some research on dopamine, you know how when dopamine is fed to people? So if you want to understand the chemical, you need to understand, medically, when do they give the chemical to the patient, right?
Is it when when you do the CPR? Is that when is that the time there?
No.
Okay.
The dopamine is actually given as a medicine, not dopamine itself, but some of the things that can induce dopamine in the brain. It's given as a medicine for Parkinson's. Has anyone thought, why would anybody have to give for Parkinson's? Is a disease related to movement. What is this brain? Why is the brain requires dopamine to stop, to control movements? Because evolutionarily, Suraj, dopamine was a most difficult chemical to produce in the brain. Because you had to first do movement to get up, do something, achieve something, then the sense of satisfaction would release the neurotransmitter in the brain. Right? That is why they both are the same. Movement and dopamine are released together when this stimuli and that stimuli happens. Right?
Even now, when you see a mental counselor or a therapist, right, the first thing they tell you when you say that you're going through a tough phase and the dopamine rush to make sure the dopamine rush happens, you need to be very physical is what they tell you. The first thing that they tell you.
Exactly. Because there is biological evidence for it.
Right.
People are treated with it. So there has to be some truth in it.
Right.
So now, coming back to the changes that is happening in our lifestyles, when you stop movement and you are still feeding the dopamine pathway, which once upon a time was so difficult for your brain to get. We had to struggle hard and win something, then we will get a little bit of dopamine. Now, sitting on the couch,
with just a couple of fingers, you can get that.
You get it. So, the dopamine that was related to movement, we are disconnecting the movement part and only feeding dopamine, but there is no movement. Right? Now, this is a highly simplified version of the way our brain functions, obviously. It's so complicated, we cannot put it all down and tell you exactly what happens. But sometimes reducing it to something as simple as this helps me make a point. That's why I'm trying to make this point, right? And if this is constantly happening, now this is giving all the changes that we're talking about, play-based learning, sedentary lifestyle, no movement. When there is no movement and there's a lifestyle is sedentary and everything is fed to you behind the screen,
that's when all the issues start.
You lose so many things that we just spoke about. You lose it all.
Right.
But you're getting dopamine. So there is a lot of confusion in the brain. It is while we are talking about this, Suraj, the inner brain of every human today is fighting to survive because the brain is constantly struggling with the inputs that is being fed by the current generation. It just is not able to understand. Bear in mind, all of these technology advancements have happened in the last 15, 20 years.
Right.
How long does evolution take to adapt to something? 1 million years? At least 1 million years?
Yeah.
Right?
At least not in my lifetime. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So which means none of us are going to evolve to adapt to this yet. We will evolve. We will all become cyborgs. 200, 300, 500 years from now, or maybe 1 million years from now, all of us will wake up with a bionic arm. Who knows, right? But we are not there yet. So let's not think that, we are adapting to this. Everything is cool. It is not. We're not evolved to adapt to it. Brain is going to take time to get all these things, to understand what's going on. It's going to take time. Yeah.
So one of the other crazy things that you would probably see if you drive in Bangalore, Srihari sir, is many people use their phones when they're driving. Right? I bet at least half the people that are driving or riding on Bangalore roads will at least use phones every now and then. I think we spoke why people are so addicted or so engrossed into their phones. Do you have any products that could help them? You may have spoken about the digital detox box,
Yeah.
but anything else that can help them?
Quite a few products we have, Suraj. So in Spryen, what we have done is we've come up with, first of all, the habits. We needed to break them. So we have the digital box to break the habit. Secondly, we are now highly focused on pregnant women because the formative years, if it's not handled properly, they can give rise to permanent damages, which you don't want. Right?
Okay.
So the formative years are something that needs to be protected. So it's a miracle. A baby being born is nothing short of a miracle. One cell coming out as a crying baby is ridiculously miraculous, right?
Right.
But that process, the process of development, there is a significant contribution from the environment to it, which we don't realize,
Okay.
right? So radiation is one of those. So what we do is we have a belly band that we make in Spryen,
Okay.
which we ask all pregnant women to wear, right? Again, it's not a pill, it's not an injection, it is not an ointment, there is nothing. All that we are saying is physically wear a brand, wear the band so that it can save you from, it can save the fetus from those waves. So the fetus can in turn look within itself to grow rather than combat the energy that is coming out and see what is going on. What am I supposed to do with this now? Right? Which was non-existent 20 years ago. All of a sudden, you're throwing into it. So it doesn't know biologically, evolutionarily, it doesn't know what to do with it. Right?
Right.
So you try to provide that environment. So that's another one that we have. We have phones, earphones. So nowadays you have phones. So the way the phones work, it's electricity and magnetism. It's a simple speaker mechanism works that way. The higher the magnetic power, the better you listen. Okay. Now magnetism, putting a magnet, shoving it into the closest part of the pineal gland in your brain, is not the right thing to do.
Right.
People do that in massive cases of mental disorder. They give shock, they give magnetic thing. They do that to change the waves in the brain, right? And we're doing that every day. We put the headset in and we run it on Bluetooth.
Okay.
Right? So what we've done is we've come out with an air tube headset. Again, that's something that's not regularly available, but that's something that is available. So we've made that available under Spryen. So it has a speaker, which actually works, and from that speaker all the way up to the ears, it is nothing but a tube, and I can show that to you.
Sure.
Right. So here it is. So this is the speaker.
Okay.
It's an actual speaker. From here to here, all the way inside it is empty.
Okay.
This is the way you have to naturally listen to sounds. How are you listening to me speaking? Because of the vibration of the air. So from here to here, it's air conducting.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can push this into your ear how much ever you want. Nothing's going to happen because it's zero radiation. Because all the magnetism and everything, I've put it way down below.
Nice.
So nothing goes next to your brain, right? And obviously when you're driving and all of that, we prefer that you wear this. I wear this all the time when I'm driving. So in case I get a phone call, at least it is hands-free. And you're still not using any kind of radiation inside a car because a car is a Faraday device and any radiation inside the car will continue to stay in the car. It's not recommended in any case, right? In any case, it is not recommended. But if you do have to, then you can use these headsets, right?
Okay.
So that is... That's one of the products. We also have grounding mats. So since all of us are moving around today, most of us carry some amount of energy in our body. So if you take a voltage pen right now and if I touch you, or you take a multimeter,
Okay.
there will be some base voltage that is running. So these base voltages earlier were a lot lesser.
Right.
20 years ago, they were hardly existent. Now the base voltage is between 1 to 3 volts, depending on where you are. It's always constantly running in your body. What does it do? People always argue with me. No, it does nothing and all of that. I'm not here to say any of that. All that I'm trying to say is, if you're having anything running in your body, right, you got to discharge it. And one of the worst inventions of mankind, I believe, is the footwear.
How so, sir?
Because the footwear disconnects you from earth. Charge stays with you. There's no earth to discharge. So where are you going to discharge this? So all of us are living capacitors moving around with charge. Don't know where to discharge it. Right? So what we do is simple. We have a grounding mat, which is a conductive mat with a rubberized base, which will stay there. And we've just given a wire that connects to the ground pin in your house.
Okay.
All you have to do is either put it on your bed at the bottom and your legs, a bad leg is always touching it. I sleep with it every day. Zero inflammation in the body.
And you discharge.
Everything goes off. So anytime, at that point in time, if you're charging the phone and you're holding the phone, especially when it is charging, anywhere between 3 to 5 volts will pass through you continuously, right? If the phone is being charged. But if you're on the mat, there is no potential difference at all. It's just the loop is completed. The loop has always been completed, Suraj, when we all used to play with bare legs.
Okay.
The loop was always completed. So none of us had any issue. Now the loop is not completed anymore. The circuit is disconnected. So we're trying to close the loop.
Right. I think I'm definitely going to check out these products because most of what you said, whether you're using your phone when it's on charge mode, although I don't want to do it, I end up doing it most of the times, and most of the people actually do it.
In fact, a lot of people work on their laptop when it is charging.
Yeah.
Even worse.
At office, that's how you work for 9 hours. Yeah.
It's even worse. I don't do it. I charge the laptop in the night. I wake up in the morning, disconnect it. I work through the day. I put it back in night. I treat it like a phone. You must treat a laptop like a phone. A phone is nothing but a computer. What else is it? It's nothing but a computer. So what's happening is when people are sitting and working, right? I do this experiment all the time. I walk into the office, I take the voltage pen, touch everybody's head. It will glow. Queen, 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 it'll glow because everybody is charged. And they're wearing phenomenal shoes, which is disconnecting them from where they could potentially lay off the charge. They're not able to lay off the charge, right? Over a period of time, obviously, the charge disperses into the atmosphere. It does happen, right? But then when you're constantly doing this, these are things which we are not evolved to understand yet. Maybe 1,000 years from now, the body will know this charge and will know what to do. Skin probably will change. Skin will become a metal for all I know.
Essentially, the benefits that we're getting right now, probably the impact of it is something that we'll feel maybe when we are, at that particular age.
So that is also one of the things I want to mention is we came up with a lap safe pad. Right? So a lap safe pad is something where you put your laptop on it, right? And you can work and it protects your bottom part, particularly male reproductive organs, with those radiations. So that's something that is a bestseller that we have. A lot of people buy that.
Like I said, I think electromagnetic radiations is a very, very vast topic, and probably it might take a complete podcast or more than that to even discuss it, because it has so many impacts on our body, on all our surroundings.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, I have final 3 questions for you.
Sure.
So earlier you mentioned that your team consisted of mental health experts, and I'm sure when you guys were designing the product, you would have specifically come across certain specific type of mental health effects that the digital appliances cause. Can you talk a bit about that?
Attention deficit
Okay.
is a major one. Irritability, right? The tolerance to irritability and reduces quite a lot. Memory problems. Lots of problems related to sleep, right? Sleep disturbances, broadly we can call that. Tinnitus in the ear, sometimes.
Can you?
Tinnitus means sometimes you
the
get
sound.
the sound.
Oh, okay.
You're wondering where it's coming from, yeah? That's because the body is trying to cope up with the constant EMR around you, right? So it does sometimes. Of course, tinnitus has not been explained. It is not a concept that is clearly explained by biology yet. But yeah, there are incidences where people have been in environments with higher EMR and they have had more tinnitus, and hence there is a correlation, not necessarily a causation, right? Fatigue. fatigue is one thing. So people are constantly complaining about fatigue and attributing that to stress levels. But it is also attributable to EMR radiations. It has a direct correlation to that. Motility, male fertility, is a big. It is a big issue, and this has been well proven decades ago because of the thermal effects of EMR, where the phone gets hot.
Right.
The thermal effects. Right. Nowadays we're long past thermal effects. We're talking of other effects now already. Thermal effect was the first thing that it came out with, and then you have lots of issues related to skin, as well as to the eyes. Eye is an electrical device. Purely works on electrical potential, right? Same goes with the skin, same goes with your heart. Your heart is pumping because of potential difference. Your bones are actually working because of potential difference. Almost everything that I can think of, your skin is a capacitance-based object. That's how you perceive the touch, right? So since everything in the body is electrical, your nervous system is electrical, brain is electrical, right? So what is there to say that when there is so much of electrical energy, electromagnetic energy in the environment outside, we would be amiss in thinking that our body is not reacting to it. I mean, it would be foolishness, almost foolishness to think that no, nothing is happening. No, everything is okay. Come on, your body is pumping because of potential difference.
Right. Agreed.
Right. So what I said are some of the known symptoms, but I'm broadly telling you that a body is an electrical device because there are so much more chronic issues that could happen. There could be apnea. There could be so many things that could happen. Yeah.
You can just go to YouTube or Google and type some of the mental health issues that people are currently searching information for.
Yeah.
And exactly whatever you just mentioned
Yeah.
are the trending topics.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you look at it holistically, the basic thing which is causing these issues could be the digital appliances. That's what people need to understand.
Yes. Well, they need to understand it is one of the factors in their environment. I'm being cautious in saying this all the time because, again, there is a lot of correlation, might not necessarily be causation. I can vouch for so many papers that I've read myself. They're all published in index journals. But largely, we must acknowledge that there is a change, there is an invisible pollutant around us. And literally, we are not seeing it. Both literally and figuratively, we're not seeing it.
Not seeing it.
Yeah.
The next thing that I want to talk to you about is, so I've had a couple of podcasts so far, and I try to ask my guests each time about AI, artificial intelligence, because that is one of the key things which is currently trending and everybody's talking about it.
Sure.
So AI is amazing, but somehow I feel the headlines don't tell you the full story.
Absolutely.
Okay. So with all that is happening in the world right now, where do you think the world is headed? Where do you think the future is headed from an AI coming into the picture?
So AI is a realm which, a previous company, we built AI products. So we were trying to build AI before even AI became a word in the market 15 years ago. The thing with AI that we all need to understand is it is almost like, trying to think of an analogy here. Maybe a diode is a good analogy. So where you pass certain amount of current into it, at a certain threshold, boom, it'll open up or it'll close. Right? But before that, there is a lot of effort. Goes in, and suddenly you hit the threshold, boom, it gives you value. So AI is like that. You got to put in a lot of effort into keeping in mind that the future will be good if we crack this, right? Now, the process of cracking it is such a long process. You don't know at what point the value is going to quadruple. You don't know.
Right.
But as companies whose objective it is to make money, they are going to have to glorify this process of constant effort because even they don't know when the value is going to come. But they have to keep glorifying this so that they get funded, so that you buy it. People are blah, 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 right? So at some point, it is going to give value. I'm not denying that. But where is that point? We don't know yet, and none of us can even predict that. Some people are predicting 10 years, some people are predicting 100 years, some people are saying not at all. It can never make a decision like we do. A simple thing like lifting something and cracking an egg. Today, we're not able to solve for it, right? Because an arm is not able to understand where to apply
The pressure.
the different kinds of pressure, right? So there are so many things to be looked into right now, but there is potential. I feel we are in this effort curve.
Right.
We've not gone to that threshold yet. And this could vary from one use case to another.
So it all
Some of the use cases could be closer. Some of the use cases could be far. Some of them might even have hit the threshold and now they are in the money-making spree, right? Those are the low-hanging use cases that people have picked up already.
So I was just saying, I think it all depends on where the people who control AI want to take the AI to, right? If they want to make money,
Yeah.
they will make money, and it may become just another menace that social media is probably right now, or it could become something great, which can lead to a lot of other revolutions in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of what we see today, Suraj, I mean, in the podcast we hear, you have a mic in front of you. Why is the mic the way it is? Do you have an answer?
Not
Why is the
really.
mic the way it is? Why is it so big? Why couldn't it be small? Oh, there are small mics as well. Absolutely. Why aren't we using that? Why are we using this? Right? All these answers to these questions is really rooted in the economic sense that firms made of. And hence, you are wearing what you are wearing, I'm wearing what I'm wearing, because somebody did a phenomenal job of selling it to you. And somebody did a phenomenal job of selling this to me. So you bought that, I bought this. Right?
Right.
So that is where it is all going to be driven to. AI is also very similar to that. So if you buy into it, then it will get funded.
Right. I have one last question for you, Srihari sir. So, if you have to give a piece of advice to 3 generations, 1 to your generation, 2 to my generation, 3 to the new generation that's coming up, what would that advice be?
So I think I have a common advice across all the generations. So it's going to be pretty easy for me, right? The one thing that I would say is learn the art of explore versus exploit. Figure out where you have to stop exploring and pick all the things that you've learned while exploring and start exploiting it. Because it is in exploitation that you have further learning, which otherwise you're missing by constantly exploring.
Right. That's a great advice, actually.
Yeah.
So I think I had a great conversation, Srihari sir. I prepared a lot of topics that I wanted to talk to you about, but the way conversation went, I was completely engrossed into it and I absolutely forgot about it. So we got diverted, which is completely fine.
That is
but
fine.
I'm sure that people who watch this podcast will gain a lot of insights into how digital devices are controlling them.
Sure.
And I hope that at least some people make changes to make their life better. That's the whole objective of this particular podcast.
Absolutely. So thanks a lot, Suraj. I enjoyed this a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's the episode on digital addiction for today. I hope you liked the conversation and you took out some insights on what things you can change in your life to improve your overall lifestyle. This is Suraj Mahale from the Midnight Lab, signing off for now. Until next time, stay healthy, stay connected, and take back control. One piece of advice that I would give you is stay connected with the word without a screen in between. See you soon. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Midnight Lab, and follow The Midnight Lab on Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.